What's up, everybody? We're back again 4 days in a row. And today what we're going to be talking about briefly, I've got about 30 minutes, is we are going to talk about the latest developments, because today, I think around 11 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time on February 17th, 2021, the court documents were made public in the Travis T. Heffelinger murder case. So we actually have the affidavit. How this works is, and I'm going to put a link right here in the chat. If I can sign in. Hey, what's up, Hawaiian Soul? Straight out of Aloha. How's it? What's up, Kapoi Kai? I am putting a link in the chat right now for the actual court filing documents. So if you guys want to check that out, you can just click that in the chat. Okay, so what I have here is the actual affidavit. Some of you may have seen on Instagram, Facebook, a lot of people are posting this. But this filing date was on Valentine's Day. So Sunday, they filed this at 8 a.m., something like that. It's all electronic now because of COVID. But you'll see there's, I don't even know, 6 pages. Typically how an affidavit works, I've filled out hundreds of these, is you have this Affy face page right here on page 1. And it talks about the officer that is actually preparing the declaration. We call it a declaration. And it talks about the arrestee and the charges that they're facing, the Hawaii Revised Statute section, and all that good stuff. But as you go further down into the deck, this is a declaration in support of warrantless arrest, which we just call an Affy. It says that Curtis Masaniai, who's the officer in charge, the arresting officer, he's going to explain what happened. Now, the face page on the declaration is only a page or two, but the attachment is what's important. The attachment is the handwritten, or I should say hand-typed. There's nothing to fill out. There's no pre-filled sections or whatever. He just talks about the elements of the crime. It's really important how these are written. These are the things that get kicked back the most, because they're so important that they go piece by piece and step by step. Some of you guys remember the officer, one of the officers who died earlier this year, Kolike Kalama. Sorry, earlier last year in January, a year ago. He was my upperclassman. He worked in CRD and books. This is what he would check. So when I would come in with an arrestee, I had to have a declaration. I had to have an attachment. The attachment goes line by line, step by step, with all the elements of the crime. Nothing more, nothing less. It doesn't have anything that you don't need. It doesn't have anything that is unnecessary. Everything in there is necessary, and it creates a bridge that shows how the officer gets from when the crime was committed to the person actually getting arrested to go to jail. This is the stuff the judge looks through step by step by step by step by step. At any point in this process, if there's a break in that chain or a crack in that bridge, if you cannot make a jump from step 7 to step 8, everything falls apart. So oftentimes you guys probably wonder, just like I did, when somebody gets off on a technicality, these are where the technicalities happen. Everything related to the probable cause or the events, the elements of the crime, and how officers came upon them, how officers discovered them, is in this declaration, in this attachment. What's up, Nathan Fleming? Sin City Aloha. Boogie Hara. What's up? What's up, Manny? Miss Honu. Thanks for coming through, guys. So I'm just going to go through this so you guys can see. I'm going to read through the declaration. Again, there's a link in the chat. I left it here on thescribe.com. I'm starting on page 2, or page 3. It says that on 2/13/2021 at 9:30 hours, your affiant assigned to the District 8 Crime Reduction Unit, which is the crew units. Those are the plainclothes guys. These are the goons, the guys that ride around in the white van or in the Bronco or in whatever, unmarked cars. These are the guys that work in plainclothes. They do that because they have an advantage, because people can't see them coming. So if you're going to apprehend a guy like this who maybe knows he's about to be arrested, these are the ones you use. The Crime Reduction Unit is a utility unit. And I spent a little bit of time, a month or 3, in the District 1 Crime Reduction Unit. I was especially assigned there. I was not a permanent crew member, and I went undercover there for like a month as well. So this is in District 8. This is out on the west side. Kapolei, Waianae, Nanakuli, Eva Beach. And they go all the way to Kaina Point. So it says that on Saturday at 9:30 in the morning, the person writing this, the arresting officer, was assigned to D8 crew, CRU, and they had been requested by Detective Michael Garcia to assist in locating Travis Heffelinger, known as Travis T. Rodrigues, for questioning regarding a missing persons case. So they already had a missing persons case that was assigned to it, no doubt filed by the mother. It says that your affiant perused the report, and Heffelinger is a person of interest in the missing case for Kitana Ancog. So basically what he's saying is the missing persons case labeled or listed Travis Rodrigues as a person of interest in the missing persons case. So right away they knew. Soon as that missing persons case was filed, that was a person of interest. That's where we think we're going to find the baby. But alive is what they were thinking initially. So it says that Kitana Ancog was in Heffelinger's care last, and that Kitana had not been seen or heard from her family ever since. And that on the 2nd, or on the 12th of February, so the very next day after the missing persons, at about 3:03 hours, 15:03 hours, which is 3:03 p.m., the crew unit was provided intel that Heffelinger was operating a 2006 Toyota Corolla 4-door sedan, silver in color, bearing Hawaiian license plate Papa Delta Papa 010, which is registered to an Ethel Rodrigues. Ethel. I'm assuming it's his mom or his grandma. That at 4:55 p.m., this officer, your affiant, that's the terminology we use. We have to write your affiant, because you have to write this, the declaration and the attachments have to be written in the third person. So people who understand law, they get this, but this is a piece of paper, this is a document that has to be able to be submitted in court with or without the presence of the person who wrote it. So if you write it in the first person, like you say, I saw this person driving and make a left-hand turn. Well, then no one else can read that paperwork and have it submitted in court. Because if let's say I was somebody who was reading the report that you wrote, and I wrote, I turned left and when I observed this and observed that, that doesn't make sense. That can't work in court. So the third person is how you have to write it. So you would say your affiant, which means the person writing this. It said that your affiant made contact with Ethel at her listed address. So at the address that was listed, the officer made contact with Ethel, whoever that is. I don't know who that is yet. It says that Ethel confirmed that she had let Heffelinger borrow the above Corolla and had not returned it yet. And that on the 13th, the very next day at 09:19 hours, Ethel informed the officer that they were informed via phone that her Corolla was at Honokai Hale, but did not know exactly where. That shortly after, the crew unit made checks locating the Corolla fronting 92702 Pa'alo Loop. And that shortly after, crew made contact with the owner, Gregorio Sato, hereinafter Sato, of the residence. So If you guys can see how this is going, I know this seems dry, but basically what's happening is every single step, you have to talk about how you found out what the information is, how you found that information, and then what you did for that next step. So he went and said, we were provided intel that he was operating this Corolla. So I contacted Ethel, who that Corolla was registered to. She said she let Heffelingo borrow the car and hadn't returned it. And the next day, she called the police and said, I heard that the Corolla is at Honokai'ahale. So then the officers made checks at Honokai'ahale where they saw the vehicle. They made contact with the owner and of that residence. And this is how they ended up at that apartment or at that house. So it sounds dry, but it's literally step by step. You cannot miss it. Ryan Hironaka. How's it, Ryan? New Valley in the house. That's my neighbor right next to Kulio. One valley over. Okay, so it says here on page 3 of 6, it says that at 1100 hours, so 11 a.m., your affiant read verbatim and out loud a written consent to search form to Sato. Sato related that he understood, signed, and allowed the crew units to search his residence for Heffelinga. And that crew subsequently made checks within the residence and Heffelinga was located. So, you notice the officers did not just search for Travis. They had to ask the person who owns the residence and has the authority to let them in or deny them. They asked him. He said yes, but that wasn't good enough. They made him sign a consent to search to show proof. I understand my rights. I understand I want them to search this property and sign it. Once they have that, they go in and search for him. I've had many consent to searches. Most of the time, in my experience, the prosecutors throw out the consent to search. And I'm not even kidding you. So I go to arrest the guy. He's got a bag. It's related to the crime I stopped him for. I ask him if I can search the bag. He says yes. I have him fill out the consent to search. Prosecutors threw it out anyway. It could have been because of the type of cases I was working on, like drug cases. But for whatever reason, when he allowed them to search the property, they didn't want him to later on come back at court and say, I didn't let them search the property, because that's all it would take. There's a concept called the fruit of the poisonous tree. The fruit of the poisonous tree means that any fruit that you harvest that comes from a poisonous tree gets thrown out of court. And basically what that means is, if at any point during one of these steps, I've already went through 13 steps for you. At any one of these points, if one of these was determined to be inappropriate or was not acceptable or violated someone's rights or wasn't done right, they pull that out. Let's say they pull out number 7. Well, then number 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 all get tossed out. That's how the law works. So if I stop someone for park closure and it's 10:01 p.m. and the park closed at 10, the guy doesn't want to give me his information. Now I arrest him for failure to provide ID. He fights me and punches me in the face, causing injury, and I take him to jail. If camera footage showed that when I stopped him it was only 9:59, 1 minute before, then he won't get in trouble for punching me in the face. Because he only punched me in the face because I went to arrest him. I only tried to arrest him because he wouldn't provide me with ID. I only tried to get ID from him because he was in violation of park closure. But when you find out he wasn't in violation of park closure, everything gets thrown out. So that's how this works, and that's why you have to provide this list in the attachment. So it said that the crew units made checks within the residence after getting the consent to search, and they found Heffelinga. Number 14 on page 4. That shortly after, Detective Don Monsanto met and interviewed Heffelinga. Monsanto informed crew that Hefelinger confessed to striking Katana and that Katana became unconscious. That Hefelinger confessed that Katana became lifeless, and then they made arrangements to dispose the body. That Detective Monsanto instructed your affiant to place Hefelinger under arrest for murder in the second degree, under this report number, and that your affiant subsequently informed and placed Hefelinger under arrest for murder in the second degree. Do you notice how it says the detectives informed crew that the Hefelinger confessed to striking the baby and that the baby became unconscious? That Hefelinger confessed that she then became lifeless and he made arrangement to dispose of her? That the detective instructed your affiant to place Rodrigues under arrest, and that your affiant placed Rodrigues under arrest. You see how that works? You can't just say, he confessed, so I placed him under arrest. It was, he confessed. The detective, who's in charge of the case, instructed me to arrest him, since he's in charge of the investigation. Then I placed him under arrest. Every single step has to be listed. That Heflinger's ID was made at the police station. That Hefelinger was identified verbally and his identity was confirmed via computer checks. That for further facts and circumstances relating to the probable cause of his arrest, refer to the attached addendum by Detective Monsanto. That above mentioned incident took place within the city and county of Honolulu in the state of Hawaii. I have to put that at the end of all my affies. That the events and circumstances that took place in this case happened within the limits of the city and county of Honolulu, state of Hawaii. Because I, as a police officer in the city and county of Honolulu, only have jurisdiction on the island of Oahu. So that is literally an element that has to be put in there. If that element is not put in there, then we don't have a complete case. It gets thrown out. You'd think it's obvious, right? Of course I'm in Hawaii. I'm on Oahu. I'm filing this. But you have to write that in there. That's just how the law works. That's why there's a lot of legal jargon. So here's the attachment, or the addendum, that Detective Don Monsanto typed up. It says, to date, your affiant, Detective Don Monsanto, has ascertained the following facts, circumstances, and information to the best of my belief and knowledge. This is page 5. Number 1. On February 11th, 2021, Detective Michael Garcia was assigned to investigate a missing person case involving an 18-month-old. That according to the baby's mother, Ashley Ancog, Katana was last seen with her known biological father, Travis Hefelinger, a.k.a. Travis Rodrigues, that on or about January 31st, 2021. Numerous attempts to locate Katana were unsuccessful, and Hefelinger stopped all communications with Ancog. So that means January 31st, she gave the baby to Travis. She tried to make contact and couldn't make contact. He wouldn't pick up the phone. He cut off all communications and she was unsuccessful. So there you go right there. This is probably when the missing persons came in, because they get assigned right away. So this is February 11th. So we're talking 10, 11 days from the time she last seen the baby is when Detective Michael Garcia gets assigned to investigate missing persons. It says, number 2, on February 13th, so Saturday, Hefelinger was located in Waianae, Hawaii, and agreed to meet with the affiant at the HPD main station. Hefelinger waived his constitutional rights and provided a recorded statement. So it's all recorded. So you notice number 2 here on his affy, his declaration, it only says he was located in Hawaii, in Waianae, and agreed to meet with the affiant. But if we go back just a page, you saw how this one little heading, on February 13th, he was located in Waianae, Hawaii. That was a complete report just 2 pages ago. There's a complete report, a complete attachment or addendum that explains just number 2 on this report. So you can imagine if you got a bunch of witnesses, a bunch of officers working on it, how that report goes from this to this real quick. Because every one of these headings could have its own complete addendum. So all of what I read earlier from the crew officer is summed up in 2. Number 2 on the detective's addendum. It says, Hefelinger stated on or about February 4th, 2021, he and Katana were at the house of an acquaintance, R.A. in Aiea, Hawaii. I don't know who RA is yet. It doesn't say. Hefelinger said that Katana was laying down and coughing. Hefelinger began to strike Katana's face and shake her before squeezing her against his chest. Hefelinger said that Katana was now unconscious and soon appeared lifeless. Hefelinger acknowledged not calling 911 for help and believed that Katana was dead. This is what he told the detective. She was lying down and coughing. And he beat her face and shook her before he squeezed her into his chest and killed her. Hefelinger saw that Katana was not moving and not breathing, so he wrapped her in a bedsheet and then placed her wrapped body in a dark-colored duffel bag and carried the bag out of the residence into the garage. Hefelinger met with another acquaintance, Scott Michael Carter, hereinafter we're going to call him Carter from now on, in the garage of the residence, and he agreed to give Hefelinger a ride. They arrived at Carter's house, where they both exited the vehicle while Katana was in the duffel bag, left in the vehicle. They both went back into the vehicle, drove a short distance to a house of an acquaintance where Hefelinger exited and remained at the residence. Carter drove off and told Hefelinger, "Don't worry about it, I'll take care of it." Hefelinger does not know the whereabouts of Katana. That's why we don't have a baby yet. On February 13th at 4 p.m., Hefelinger was placed under arrest for murder in the second degree. Okay. Number 7. On February 13, 2021, DG was interviewed at the main police station. DG arrived at RA's residence and in Iea and walked towards his bedroom. DG heard a baby crying and could see Hefelinger inside slapping Katana, yelling, "Shut the F up. Get the F out of here." Katana, who was crying and looking scared, ran up to DG and DG asked Hefelinger what was going on, and he said, "F that baby." He tried to calm Hefelinger and saw him kick Katana, causing her to fall to the ground crying. Hefelinger tried to give Katana a methamphetamine pipe, telling DG that's what she liked. Hefelinger later told DG that KA was his child and stated he had her for effing 3 days already. DG left the residence, but returned a short time later and observed Katana naked and crying. She observed bruising and marks to different parts of Katana's body. DG also observed bruising and blood near KA's mouth, but Hefelinger told them that the blood was chocolate and that she had fallen in the shower. DG said the blood on KA's mouth, on Katana's mouth, was not chocolate. DG left the residence but returned in the morning. DG observed Hefelinger laying on a chair, completely covering both he and Katana with a blanket. When Hefelinger got up, he held Katana, and DG observed Katana's legs with even more bruising and was dangling as if lifeless. Hefelinger carried Katana and walked out of the house. DG feels Hefelinger was smoking meth and looked high. The above-mentioned incident occurred in the city and county of Honolulu, the state of Hawaii. That's it, folks. That's the story. I'll be praying for the family of Katana and her friends and all that knew her. She was adorable. I'm sure she touched the lives of many. And I hope they find her so there can be some kind of closure. It's a sad story. Rest in peace, Katana. At least she's not being abused anymore. So what's going to happen now is tomorrow Travis has his preliminary appearance, and they'll take it from here. He waived his rights. He confessed. I anticipate he's going to fight it. And I anticipate he's going to say that he was under the influence of crystal methamphetamine when he gave the interview. That's a pretty common tactic. But usually what happens is the detectives will give a drug test. If they are under the influence, they have to wait a certain amount of time. So every time I arrested somebody for drugs, the narco detective would go to interview him. If he was high, he'd have to wait 24 hours or whatever it was for him to come down, because he can't be under the influence being interviewed. So in the discovery trial, and in there'll be a trial that'll literally be for dismissal. It's just going to be for the suspect or the defendant to try to get the case thrown out. It's probably what he's going to bring up. So I've seen it before where they confess and then they fight it anyways. But it looks like the officers did what they had to do, did what they were supposed to do. Even though you only saw 6 pages, it's probably 100. This is just the affy. This is what gets signed and stamped and notarized by a notary, gets submitted in court. This is what the judge looks at. So that's why I only read this, because this is really the elements of the crime. There's so much more to it, and there's a lot of nuance, and there's assignment, arrival, observation, scene, time, element. There's all these headings that officers write, and probably a dozen officers have written headings on their own report. But it all gets broken down to this. There's no fat here. This is all meat. This is everything that needs to be in the case to get it to court, so that the judge signs off on the arrest, to detain and set bail. That's where we are now. Okay, I just want to get to some of these comments real quick. Ryan Hirnaka said, hit that like button, gangy. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you, bro. Straight out Aloha, wow. Lick 'em, self-defense. Just kidding. I know there's a lot. I don't know how he's gonna. I know he's in isolation. They got him in ISO right now. They're saying because of COVID. But they honestly should keep him there, because he's not safe. Heinsoul said, question, have they recovered baby's remains, and are they searching? They have not found the baby's remains. They are searching. I'm sure there are dozens of officers that are looking for the baby. They probably have people diving. They probably have people checking dump yard, like the dumps. They probably have people checking pig trails. If I had to guess. Kimberly, thank you. I appreciate you guys coming through. It's my birthday, so I'm not going to do a full hour. I just wanted to do a quick half hour so I could see you guys, give you a quick update, explain how everything worked with the AFI. If anybody's got any questions, I'm going to answer them before I go. Yeah, Kapoi Kai Lion said, I guarantee he's going to request for protective custody when he goes to jail. He's already in it right now. I guarantee you. Straight Out Aloha said, where they burn bodies, check there. I guarantee you they're checking for fires. Oh, Tater Monkey with the $10 birthday gift. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Happy birthday to me. Ha'oli lao hanau, cuz. Mahalos. Kanaka Hawaii. Thank you, Miss Honu. I didn't want to talk about my birthday because this was such a somber moment. But thank you guys. I appreciate the support. Goodbye said, thanks for these live sessions. Good perspective from someone who was on the inside. Hawaii law enforcement. Keep it up, brother. I will. Goodbye. Mahalos. Jensen Chang. Thank you for doing this on your birthday. Thank you, G. I appreciate it. I responded to your Marco Polo. I don't know if you sent them back already, but I already got one in the queue for you. Ha'oli lahano, bro. From Hawaiian Soul. Thank you. Thank you, sis. Appreciate you. Happy birthday, my brother. I wish you 100 more from Manny. Thank you, Manny. Thank you, Kapoi Kai. Hawaii boy. It's a long story why I left, but I'm making an episode about it on the podcast. I don't like spoil them. Straight out of Aloha said, Chihu, happy birthday, bro. Thank you, guys. Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys checking in. I wanted to get this one out. For those of you that I've been overwhelmed. My email's full from people that wanted to get involved on the book. I don't even know what we're going to call that process yet because it's not a book club, because I don't know if we're ever going to do that again or if there's other books. But that one was so important to crime, to corruption in Hawaii. It's so tied in with like Miski and the police department and all that. So I definitely am working on it. We just set up a Patreon, and I just set up, in the process of setting up the membership on YouTube. I'm going to try to see if I can do them for no fee, but they may require 99 cents for the membership to do like a 99 cents a month or whatever. Because I want to be able to release the videos of us talking about the book, Sunny Skies, Shady Characters. I also want to have one where I actually read the book. I actually read the chapter. So if you don't have the book, or you just listen to this and you don't actually watch it, that you can actually listen to me read the book. And then I would like to do a Zoom call with those that are interested, where we all get on Zoom and we talk about the chapter. Talk about things that we heard. Oh, I knew about this guy, or I was related to this guy. I remember when those buildings were being built. I remember when that guy got elected. That's what I want. I want to connect with you guys. We'll do some type of a Zoom or Skype or whatever. And we'll do multiple. I'll send out the Zoom. We'll all log on. And we'll do like 1 hour where we'll talk about the different nuances inside the chapter. So that we kind of go through the journey together. So that's going to be the process, guys. I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure out how to make it as seamless as possible. I'm planning for next week. And then we'll see how far I get this weekend. But I've been working on it today. I'll work on it tomorrow. And as long as we keep getting updates on this case, I will make sure that I do a video or a live stream. If something happens on Mike Miski, I'll make sure I do that. Or Uncle Louis Kealoha. So I'm going to try to stay on top of these cases since they're kind of the most important. There's a few things that showed up on the Mike Miski stuff that I'll talk about, his longliner boat, things like that. But for the most part, I'm just going to try to focus on setting up whatever program we got to set up so we can do this book stuff together. So I appreciate you guys. The support was overwhelming. The interest was huge. And I would like to kick it with you guys, hang out, talk story about the book, read them together, and kind of go through that journey. I've already read it, and I still want to read it again. That's how much I love it. So if you haven't bought the book, go ahead and do that. There's a link in the descriptions of the last few videos that I've done. And when this one posts, it takes about 24 hours. I will put a link in that one as well. So you have a link to be able to go buy that book. And I haven't heard back from James Dooley, but I did reach out to him to see if I could get some type of a deal so that people that were buying To Leaving the Dream could maybe get a discount. If we were going to have a bunch, maybe I'll buy a bunch of them and then you guys can buy them from me so we can try to save some money together. But that's the direction I'm going. So you guys asked for it, and I think it would be fun just to hang out. The more time we can spend together, the better. And we'll see how that goes. I'm new to this, so you guys got to bear with me. But I think we'll have some fun. It's Nate Fleming, not related to this case, but how do you only have jurisdiction on Oahu, but Maui PD and HPD were on Mauna Kea during the PMT protest? So Nathan, how that works is they can request help. So they can deputize, they can cross-deputize people to come help. And that's what happened on Mauna Kea. So my unit, people from my unit were sent to Mauna Kea during the protest. I was gone already. I had already left Oahu. And they needed help. And then there were certain things they wanted to do, right? Like they're not going to send a dude that looks like me up Mauna Kea to try to talk and reason and negotiate with the people on Mauna Kea. So they put all the Hawaiian brothers together, the dudes that have connections, deep roots and connections in Hawaii, but still were law enforcement, to go up there and try to loan me the situation. So my partner Moku was out there, and it was heartbreaking for him because he's a Hawaiian guy, and he had to go up there, and some awesome connections were made, and there were some touching moments, and it was obviously, you guys remember how monumental that whole situation was, and they cross-deputized people because they needed help. Not to mention, like, HPD's got tons of people. HPD has over 2,000 officers. So if anyone could spare the manpower, it was HPD. So as a Honolulu police officer, I am employed by the city and county of Honolulu, not the city and county of Maui. So Maui County has their own city PD, and Oahu has their own. Because obviously the island of Oahu is the county of Honolulu. Maui has Molokai. Molokai has a Maui police officer for Maui PD. So we just, to help out, we went over there. And they weren't enforcing Maui County rules. They were enforcing the Hawaii revised statutes. So they were enforcing the laws of Hawaii, which they are deputized to do, but in a county that they had to be cross-deputized to get into. I hope that makes sense. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate you. So that you can just email me, Tatermonk, you can email me, Doug@DougKorenic.com. I haven't responded to any emails yet because I'm just working on setting it up, and then I will respond as soon as I have it all set up. I'll respond to everybody. But you can email me, Doug@DougKorenic.com. You can go to my link tree, which is Doug Korenic. I will have a link in my YouTube or any of my social media to that link tree where you can find my email or any of my links if you want to reach out. Kim says she'll sponsor a few books. So those of you who maybe don't have the money or can't find a book, because Kim graciously bought me a book because at the time I couldn't find one. As soon as the Louis Kealoha stuff happened, the Mike Miskey stuff happened, those books went off the shelves because everybody started Googling Hawaii corruption, trying to read books. So James Dooley's book couldn't be found anywhere, but Kim found some, and she sent me one. Now you can find them again. I think they loaded up on the stock, which I may buy a bunch just so people can buy them. So PJ Tanag said, I may have missed this, but under what grounds was he detained by HPD, taken in, but not formally arrested? Could he have legally refused to be taken in? He could have legally refused to be taken in. He was brought in for questioning. He was not placed under arrest. He went to HPD for the questioning because remember, they had to test him, they had to get his consent, he had to waive his Miranda rights. They had to record it, and they wanted it to be safe. So he gets patted down, the whole deal. He comes, sits in that little room you seen on first 48, your typical interrogation room. Then they ask him the questions. They record it all. And there's a certain format in which they got to do it. All this has to be done right or it'll get thrown out of court. After he waived his Miranda and then gave his statement confessing to the murder, they arrested him at 5 o'clock that day. And he could have refused and he could have said, I want an attorney, but he didn't. And I credit that to the skill of the Honolulu police officers, the detectives. Straight out of Aloha says, cause, fight each other as brothers. Raj. Hawaiian Soul, thank you. I see that birthday cake. And Waiya'o. Wow. Same month as me. Birthday. Well, happy birthday, Waiya'o. Hope one day you can return and follow your dream. Yep, I know about the poisonous tree. 808 says, mahalo. Well, mahalo to you. Thank you for all the support. You guys are great. Pamela Bermudez. Bermudez in the house. Brrrah. They should have sent me. So embarrassing. Kanaka, Hawaii. Moku Paiva. No, not Moku Paiva. But people ask that all the time. You're like the third person to ask me if it was Moku Paiva. But no. Nate Fleming said, gotcha. So I hope I answered your question, bro. Kim said, go celebrate your life. I'm going to go do that. That's aloha right there. Ha'olila hanao. Thank you, Yvette. Good job, detectives. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap this one up. Love you guys. This was awesome. I'm glad you guys came through. I'm so sorry it had to be on this topic, but I wanted to keep you updated. If you got any questions, feel free to email me, DM me on any of the social media. And until the next time, thank you guys for all the birthday wishes. And